Hi, this is Carlos Palomino, former welterweight champion of the world and 2004 International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, and you're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti, today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling True Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we got some great stuff coming up for you again today. First of all, let me tell you about our featured guest who will join us for the second half of today's show. Donny Lalonde was light heavyweight champion of the world in 1987 and 1988, retired with a record of 41-5, 33 knockouts, fought guys like Mustafa Hamsho, Sugar Ray Leonard, Bobby Ches, Virgil Hill. We invited him on the show, though, today to talk about his personal life. This is a guy with a ninth grade education who owned 5 houses in Canada by the time he was 22 years old, had a $2 million bank account by the time he retired. Then he made some smart real estate deals in Costa Rica and blew that up into a $6.4 million fortune. And then, largely through no fault of his own, the economy tanked. He lost it all. Lost all $6.4 million, filed bankruptcy, found himself in the complicated world of international finance, which he didn't understand at all with his ninth grade education, trusted some people that he shouldn't have trusted, and suddenly discovered one day that his name was being mentioned in newspaper articles in connection with something called the Panama Papers scandal. There's a major motion picture coming out very soon about the Panama Papers scandal. Donny Lalonde was mixed up in this thing somehow. He's going to join us in a little while to tell us that whole story, what it felt like to have that weight crashing down on him and his family, and how he managed to survive it all and get back on his feet again. This is really interesting. Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, not going to be with us this week, so we are going to start off as we do every week with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist from Toronto. John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer from maxboxing.com and doghouseboxing.com. And John and I are co-authors of an Amazon bestseller, Intimate Warfare, The True Story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward Boxing Trilogy. And Travis is on a jet plane right now, somewhere over the Atlantic, as we record this show. He trains a woman named Ashley Curry, a super middleweight, who on Tuesday got an offer from Eddie Hearn to fight undefeated two-time Olympian Savannah Marshall in England on 4 days' notice. So Travis and Curry jumped on a plane, and Ashley got stopped with a body shot Saturday night in the third round by this two-time Olympian. So that's why Travis isn't with us this week. But we do have Riz and John with us. Guys, the light heavyweight division is pretty deep and talented these days. We saw 2 undefeated champions face each other on Friday in Philadelphia, where Artur Beterbiev moved to 15-0, all knockouts, with a 10th round stoppage over Oleksandr Gvozdyk, who was 17-0. That unified Beterbiev's WBC title with Gvozdyk's IBF title, and it was one hell of a good fight. In fact, 2 of the 3 judges had Gvozdyk ahead on the cards going into the 10th round when Beterbiev scored the 3 knockdowns and got the stoppage. So, first of all, what about those scorecards? One judge had it 87-83 for Beterbiev. The other 2 had it 87-84 and 86-85 for Gvozdyk when those knockdowns happened. Riz, is that the fight you were watching? Is that what you saw?
I could see it that way, yeah. I mean, Gvozdyk was still sticking and moving and sticking and moving. He was just being forced to work really hard to do it. So that's why he looked. You can see the momentum of the fight was shifting, even when he was winning rounds. You know, you could win a round, but you know it doesn't mean like towards the end. You could see the momentum shifting. You know, it kind of reminded me of, it was almost Antonio Margarito, Miguel Cotto like, where it's just, you know, Cotto's winning rounds, but he's just working harder and harder. It's just wearing him out. And that's kind of how the knockout happened. It wasn't a one punch lay you out kind of knockout. It was just all pressure and being worn down. And Gvozdyk just looks exhausted. And he's not a guy who's known to have like horrible conditioning or anything like that. He's a guy who's always been in shape. If you think when he knocked out Donny Stevenson, that was an 11th round knockout, and that was a huge knockout. So you don't do that unless your cardio is, unless your cardio is through the roof. So he did everything. There's nothing he did wrong really, and that just indicates how great Beterbiev is. There was a 50-50 fight. Gvozdyk fought the better guys. He fought a Don Stevenson. He fought, a couple other top light heavyweights, or at least top 10 kind of guys. But you can see from Beterbiev's style, it's just he has boxing ability. He knows how to stick and move a bit himself. He knows how to get in and get out. He knows how to leverage his power when he really wants to. But Gvozdyk wasn't letting him land any of those headshots. So Beterbiev he throws awkward body shots too. It's not your traditional left hook to the body either. It's just I don't know what he does. He just does really well. And I think I was looking at his amateur stats. I think he actually used to fight as an Olympian heavyweight actually. So he's actually he's through naturally bigger, and that's why Olympian heavyweight. So not super heavyweight. So that's about I think cruiserweight now. So if you think about it, and that's why you look at him, and he's just all muscle, right? There's not 1 gram of fat on him, and it's just that's why he just packs a lot of power into every single one of his shots, and you see how his power it carries throughout a fight too, because he's had a couple of late knockouts too, and you just see that Gvozdyk, for all intents and purposes, Gvozdyk could be the number 2 light heavyweight right now, and that's why you're not going to hear 1 ounce of criticism about his loss, because to be honest, it's hard to really fault him doing anything all that wrong in this fight. I don't think there's anything I saw where I'm like, oh, well, he did a horrible job here. There's nothing that, probably could have threw the jab more, probably could have moved more, but, it's, and I'd say Gvozdyk probably beats pretty much every other light heavyweight. I mean, there's a reason, we talked about this, there's a reason why Canelo was going up to fight Kovalev and didn't make any mention against Beterbiev and Gvozdyk, right? Because these two guys, these are real light heavyweights, and you see that Beterbiev is, that's something different. And if you guys have ever watched, if anyone watches UFC, funny enough, he is friends with Khabib Nurmagomedov, and both of them, they're all, this group of Chechens from Russia. They have a similar mindset in everything they do. They're very tough. They're very no nonsense approach, but their styles are very much the same. It's overwhelming with cardio and power and pressure until it breaks you. And again, Gvozdyk's a high-level Olympian or high-level amateur fighter. Has already had a great start as a pro, and he just couldn't handle the pressure. And it says something. And it says how great a Beterbiev fight is. So you might beat Beterbiev, and we've seen him squared up. We've seen him knocked down. He got knocked down against Callum Johnson, but it's not going to be easy, man. You're going to go through a lot of hell to beat a guy like that. So I mean, I'm happy the fight as it was just happened, because there's very few guys who are willing to put it all on the line that early in their career and, put money aside for later. Because both of these guys could have fought much easier opponents for probably the next 3 or 4 years before they wanted to make a fight. But, you're seeing a shift in mentality, especially with a lot of the Eastern European guys. They know they're going to get some money out of this. Whether it's, these guys got each probably a couple million for this fight. They probably could have got the same amount of money fighting bums, but it doesn't do them the same justice. And, there's a reason why that fight was as great as it was. It was a war. It was, you saw 2 actual champions going head to head, and you can see both guys just getting better from this. But, as far as the scorecards, I mean, it was a good matchup for styles, and I could see the fight shifting, because there's no way that, Gvozdyk was probably going to win round 11 or round 12 at that point. But I mean, 87-84 might be a little wide, but you could definitely make a case for it, and that itself shows that Gvozdyk, the skill that he has, and that he was pretty much in the fight too, and he didn't came all that far from winning that fight also. So if he's almost able to be Beterbiev, if he was able to survive a couple more rounds, I still think he beats pretty much every other light heavyweight.
John, you know what? All 3 of you guys thought this was basically a pick'em fight, and maybe a fight with fight of the year potential. Did this live up to your expectations?
Well, not really. Maybe not a fight of the year, but certainly a tough, grueling, competitive, professional boxing match between two really, really good fighters. And Riz always makes good points, and Beterbiev is as we were talking off air, he's just relentless. I haven't seen a lot of his fights, only a few of them. And you got to be able to hurt him. You got to make him think a little before he's going to hesitate. And then I don't even think he will hesitate then. I mean, he's just a relentless guy. And Gvozdyk, I had him winning the fight by a point at the stoppage. But you could see that it really didn't matter that the fight was going to Beterbiev, because Gvozdyk couldn't do anything to stop him. It would be like losing a verbal debate with somebody where you can't beat them. It's too much, and you try to make a few points, but you can't. And in this way, it was a physical debate, or not even a debate, just a physical fight, and there's nowhere to run, and that was the problem. And Gvozdyk was trying. He was trying to get Beterbiev off him, and that's what made it so dramatic, in a sense, that he was trying everything he could think of. He was throwing right hands, and he kept missing. He did seem to hurt Beterbiev in, I think, the seventh or eighth round. But the key to me, Dennis and Riz, was the body work. Beterbiev started going to the body around round 3, I believe, and he hurt Gvozdyk a number of times, and that's why I think he was also a little more tired, was the body work. It was everything we said. It was the body work, the pressure, and how hard he had to work to try to stay in the fight. So all three of those things, even though he was in fantastic condition, it just wore him out. And he is still a human being. Fighters are still human beings. So that's what happened. But fight of the year, maybe not. I don't know. I guess you could throw it in there somewhere if you want, but I don't think it was as good as Porter and Errol Spence. I think the one we got coming up next weekend might be there too, Dennis. Possibly Prograis and Taylor might be a fight of the year. It's possible to say that now. But a very, very good fight. And then we had Golovkin and Derevyanchenko. That was also an extreme. See, I thought that fight was a better fight than this one. But that's not meant to put down this fight. It was a really good. It was just a real grueling fight, like I said, and it was almost difficult to watch in the sense that you could feel that. I said in an article, it was like Gvozdyk had a slow leak, and it was like a balloon, and he was just losing air. You could see it. It was just coming, and he got stopped. But still, a very good fight. Beterbiev is one tough mother, and like I said when we were talking about it, you're going to need something pretty damn special to get him to respect you, and then to beat him. It's going to take a lot. I don't know. There's got to be a boxer out there that could move around, but I was thinking Andre Ward was retired, and I was thinking Andre probably pretty happy that he's retired, because Beterbiev, that guy can punch, and Andre didn't move like he did when he was a super middleweight, so that would have been a problem even for him. So that would have probably been a really intriguing fight, because Andre would have tried to outsmart him, and he might have been able to do it and win a decision. But all props to Gvozdyk too, who had a concussion. I read a slight concussion, and they took him to the hospital and made sure he was okay, which is good, and he's going to go through a battery of tests for his next fight, which is also very good. So he's okay, and everybody's fine, but still a hell of a fight, Dennis.
Okay, here's an interesting question that I really wanted to ask our pro fighter Travis Hartman today, but since he's unavailable, I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Riz, as you mentioned, you tweeted or messaged us and said there's a reason why Canelo picked Kovalev over Beterbiev. Do you guys think that a world-class fighter, a pound-for-pound guy like Canelo, in his most private moments, looks at another top guy, somebody like Beterbiev, and thinks, wow, this is a guy who just might kick my ass. I don't want to fight him if I can avoid it. Do those thoughts ever go through the head of an elite fighter like Canelo, or is that something that promoters and managers and trainers whisper to each other when nobody else is within earshot, especially the fighter? Do you think the fighter himself ever looks at Beterbiev and says, nah, too much for me, I don't want him?
I think it definitely depends on who it is. I think the guys who've been, I won't say spoiled, but the guys who've been given kind of everything, who never have to work to get to the top, they're less likely to take the risk. That's what I've found. Canelo, for example, I mean, again, he's a 500, he's a heavier favorite to beat Kovalev than Wilder is to beat Ortiz in the rematch. I mean, this was a couple weeks ago when I checked, but isn't that a little crazy? Like I don't think anyone thinks Ortiz is going to lose against, that Wilder is going to lose against Luis Ortiz, and Kovalev is that much of an underdog when he has a 2-division weight advantage. So, I mean, there's obviously something there. But I think it just depends on who it is. And that's why, again, Golovkin fought Derevyanchenko despite him being sick the week of and is all willing to give a rematch. That's why Gvozdyk and Beterbiev fought each other, even though Gvozdyk was knocked out against Beterbiev as an amateur. That's why Dmitry Bivol is saying, I said I want the winner, and I want the winner, so I want Beterbiev now. And honestly, as much as I love Bivol, I don't think that's a good fight for him, especially because he can go down to 168. So he's going to be at a serious size disadvantage there too. But I think there's a difference in mentality. I think there's certain guys who just say, put me in the ring with him and I'll figure it out. I don't care if I lose. Paul Williams was that kind of guy. Sergio Martinez was that kind of guy. Again, two guys who didn't get their due until much later. Sergio Martinez was almost all but retired until he got a somewhat of a decent fight. I guess Alex Bunima had got a knockout, then fought Kermit Cintron, got robbed. He knocked out Cintron. The referee ruled it a low blow or something, and he was a scorecard. The scorecard was a draw, and that's when Sergio Martinez was 32, right? That guy's had to work for everything, and that's why when he fought Paul, him and Paul Williams were able to be sure, we'll fight each other despite us having better financial options, because I think they just understand what greatness is not about. Legacy is not about money. Legacy is not just about, no one's going to say, if Canelo can go up and he's going to beat, I think he'll beat Kovalev, and you know what, that is an accomplishment because you are going up two weight divisions, but there is going to be the backlash that, well, you didn't beat a real light heavyweight. You didn't beat the guy who people consider the top 2 or 3 light heavyweights right now. You beat the guy who people thought you were going to beat him anyways. And I think that's the difference, where guys from Canelo's side would be like, well, you know what, that's okay. I still went up and I still did this, right? I think the difference is guys like, especially the Eastern Bloc, the Ukrainians and the Russians, the guys from Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, they're like, no, we don't want any sort of potential backlash, right? And that's why Golovkin could easily just move on for Derevyanchenko right now, and no one would fault him for it. But he's not going to do that because it's not in his DNA. Usyk could have just stayed at cruiserweight and recycled. He's already cleared out the division. He could have just done that. But there's more willingness to risk. And again, it's for the same reason. I think it's because, all these guys are high-level Olympians and all that, but they didn't really get their due even on the way up. They had to work for, even the fights that they had. They didn't get big fights right away. They didn't. Especially guys like Golovkin, who was pretty much in obscurity. But even guys like Usyk, he was like, everyone wants to leave Ukraine to go become a better pro. I said, no, I'm going to stay here. So I just think there's a difference in mentality with a lot of guys. And a lot of guys just don't have that willingness to, I wouldn't say speak up. I don't know if that's the right word. But there's a lot of, put it this way, Gvozdyk, and Beterbiev, I think they're both promoted by Bob Arum now. Bivol has already said, I want to fight the winner, whether it's on ESPN or whatever. And Eddie Hearn's like, okay, I guess we'll make it happen. Because Bivol has that willingness to speak out. And I think some guys just say, there's almost there's a speaking out, but they say, well, just call my promoter, we'll make it happen. That's not the same effect, right? I think that's something we've heard Terence Crawford say a lot. And I'm not faulting him because it's, he's with Top Rank, he's getting paid handsomely, and, he hasn't fought any of the best guys yet. And even though I'm not saying that him, saying this so publicly is going to necessarily make that happen, but you just see there's just a difference in mentality with some of these guys. And that's why I think, some of the best fights we have seen are guys who are like Gvozdyk and Beterbiev. You don't see that fight. You don't see a unification title fight between two undefeated guys. This is the first time on light heavyweight that's ever happened, right? It took up in 2019 for that to happen, and it's being fought in Philly from a guy who's fighting out of Oxnard, by Ukraine, and a guy who's fighting out of Montreal by way of Chechnya, right? It's a different era altogether, but I think there's also a different mindset that some guys have that other guys just simply don't. And it's not a criticism. I think it's just the lay of the land. I think some guys are going to prefer fighting for longevity and earning more money in return, and other guys are just like, this is competition, and I'm not going to get motivated by it if I'm not fighting the best.
John, what's your take on this? I don't think any of us. I think conventional wisdom is that we're not going to see Canelo fight Beterbiev, and you and I were talking off the air that Beterbiev is a friggin' cyborg, man. He's unbelievable. Do you think Oscar is the one who will keep his franchise fighter away from Beterbiev? Do you think Canelo would really like to fight Beterbiev, or do you think Canelo is just as happy to? I mean, Canelo's got a lot of options, which we'll talk about next, but a lot of options. So he doesn't have to fight this guy ever, I don't think. How do you think a guy like Canelo has any fear of a guy who's just too much for him, probably?
I don't think he has any fear of him, to be honest. They can't. Boxers, every boxer I've ever talked to, they do have fear of losing, but they don't necessarily have a fear of a particular fighter. They have to have the confidence. They have to have the belief they can win. I think Canelo and Oscar are very calculating in what they're doing. I think they want the titles. I think they want to say Canelo Alvarez, former 6-time champion, junior middleweight, super middleweight, whatever. I just threw 6 out there. Light heavyweight. I think it's a legacy thing, which, in my view, they cheapen when they cherry pick. Not that Kovalev is a cherry pick, but he's not in his prime. Right. We know that. We know that Kovalev is not in his prime. That's the thing. If I think most people who really know boxing would have a hell of a lot more respect for Canelo if he said, I want Beterbiev. But that's a really it's a risk and reward thing, right? I mean, he could get knocked out by Beterbiev. Beterbiev can knock anybody out. So that probably the way they look at it is too risky, and they're using the Mayweather template in a way where we can't lose, we can't do that. So we're trying to find the fights that we really think we got a great chance of winning and adds to our legacy. That's what I kind of think.
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
I think that's a great point.
This goes to the whole. Yeah, this goes to the point of the way boxing is nowadays with all these damn belts, where WBC, WBO, WBA, IBF, and it just goes on and on and on. You can find a belt from anybody. They'll present you a belt by showing up a lot of the times, and to me, it just cheapens it. I don't like it. I never mentioned Manny Pacquiao being a 10-time champion because a number of those titles are cheap, as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Manny Pacquiao fans, but not taking anything away from him. He's a world champion and all that, but they're like gimme. Like when he won a so-called title, when he knocked out a shop-worn and past his prime Lucas Matisse. To me, it didn't mean that much, and that cheapens everything. They're like trinkets. They're no longer world champions. So I see that, but that's a really good question, and it's too bad that Travis isn't here to answer it because the mental part of being a fighter is so interesting. And again, Riz made a great point. The names he mentioned, those guys were old school, a lot of them. They would fight anybody. The guys who came up, the guys who really, they weren't the franchise guy like Canelo. He's the franchise guy. I do believe, though, that at one point in his career, Canelo had that mentality. I mean, you start boxing at 15 years old. He's paid his dues in a lot of ways. But then you turn into a little bit, you turn into a little bit of a businessman. You think, well, I can make more money doing this and less risk and add another title by fighting a 36-year-old guy who just fought, was in a heap of trouble in the 8th round, almost got knocked down, almost got knocked out. it's possible I could lose. It is possible. But this Crusher is not the Crusher of 3 or 4 years ago. He's not the Crusher who destroyed Bernard Hopkins. He's not the Crusher who destroyed Jean Pascal twice. I mean, he's not that guy anymore. He's still good, but so I think, back to what I said in the beginning, I think it's all calculating on some of their parts. And with Oscar and Canelo, that's the top word as far as I'm concerned. They calculate what will add to the legacy of a Canelo and where he can make the most amount of money and go from there, which is unfortunate, but it is called prize fighting as far as a prize. I get that, but as far as the respect that you're going to get possibly from people like us, we have respect always, but you want to be the man, you got to beat the man, and if you want to move up the light heavyweight, we know who the man is. Now, we're not fighting the man. You see, that's my point. Yeah. So you kind of do it, but you juggle and you balance it and you look at it. But that's basically how I see it. They weigh it and then they go with the lesser of the risk, and that right now is Kovalev.
And if he beats Kovalev, he's got that division taken care of for his legacy, so he doesn't have to fight anybody else to be able to say he's won this many divisions. So exactly. So many options. 175 guys is probably a one-off for Canelo, isn't it? He's got so many options right now. Jermall Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, Billy Joe Saunders, who's being hyped as the Cinco de Mayo opponent in May, Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, David Benavidez at 168. And then there's the trilogy fight with Golovkin if he decides he wants that. If you're Golden Boy Promotions, Riz, which way do you want to see him go?
I'm still surprised that they didn't elect to fight. Elect to fight Golovkin. And again, I think I see a similarity with what what Canelo and Andre Ward both did, and they both elected, in some way, shape, or form, essentially, to fight Kovalev over Canelo. And that to me is a little, I want to say striking, but it's surprising for a reason, right? They're more than willing to go up weight to fight him than fight Golovkin. And again, there's, I'm not talking about the disputes of money and all this sort of things, but that is just kind of interesting. I don't know what's best. I think I know what's worst. Billy Joe Saunders, when he's motivated, could be the most dangerous guy, I'd say in some ways in boxing, maybe, because I think he can just the impact he can derail a Canelo fight, a Golovkin fight, a potential Kovalev, like all these kind of things he can derail. I don't see a Charlo getting in the ring with Canelo. Just there's too many logistics to make it happen, and I just don't see why Golden Boy would elect to have a Charlo in the ring. And let's face it, Charlos they're not that well known. They're not that popular. And then you add in the logistics side. It's just a lot of work, right, to make a fight like that happen. I can see Demetrius Andrade, and I can see Demetrius Andrade being, because if you look at Andrade and you look at Billy Joe Saunders, I think most of us would agree that there's a lot of similarities with both guys. Both of them are kind of slick, but Saunders is the more dangerous of the two. So would Andrade almost be I don't want to say a tune-up, but almost a practice session, like a round one versus before he, fights fights Billy Joe Saunders in the final, if that makes sense, rather than the other way around. I think where you're going, because Golovkin, or Canelo rather, he's had a lot of brawlers lately, like in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, Golovkin's a good boxer and all that, but he hasn't really fought a very slick guy in a really long time. And if you're just going from Golovkin to even Danny Jacobs to Kovalev, and then from there going into the ring with Billy Joe Saunders, that's a big switch. So I think he almost needs a transition fight, if that makes sense. Billy Joe Saunders is dangerous. Like we know how dangerous he is, and again, here's something else. If you remember, before the rematch with Canelo and Golovkin happened, Golovkin and Billy Joe Saunders had a date booked for Staples Center in LA, and it was all ready to go before Canelo signed on for the rematch. So Golovkin clearly thought he had enough to beat Billy Joe Saunders, but that, the rematch that happened, might have been non-existent, right? So Billy Joe Saunders, the problem with Billy Joe Saunders is he has to put it all together, and that means mentally too. he creates news for so many wrong reasons, and he should just stay out of trouble. He needs to make all the sort of things that that make him more professional, because it's hard to, you're such a style nightmare for so many fighters, and promoters know that. So why are they going to put you in the ring with someone, they're cash cow, if you're also just irresponsible? And let's face it, it's been almost 2 years since he beat David Lemieux, and he hasn't fought anyone worth mentioning since. So that's another problem.
Right. Yeah.
He absolutely schooled David Lemieux. I saw that right in front of me, and that was a clinic. But since then, it's just been a lot of questionable opponents, and not even a lot. He beat Charles Adamu, Shafati Yusufi, who's I think I've seen him once before against someone. I don't even remember who, but he's been around, or I've seen his name around. But that's pretty much it. He's going up against an undefeated Argentinian in a couple weeks, Marcelo Esteban Coceres. But again, that guy who's been in the ring with absolutely no one. So it's just, you need better opponents at this point. But he did sign on to DAZN to eventually make a Golovkin or Canelo fight. And I do really want to watch him against Canelo, because I think that is the toughest fight for Canelo. And I think, again, it's one of those things where all the guys you mentioned, Canelo skipped all these guys, is skipping Callum Smith at 168 to go fight Kovalev at 175. There's a reason why the odds are that wide, right? There's a reason why he's a 5-1 favorite. Because like John said, Kovalev's not the same he used to be. Kovalev's still a very good fighter. And I think in some ways he's probably more disciplined now than he was a couple years ago. But clearly he doesn't have the same legs underneath him. His reflexes are just a little slower. He still has power, and that's the last thing to go. But it's not the crippling, daunting power. He doesn't have the sidestep right hand that kind of used to land. And it's just everyone says what's the weakness Kovalev has? Body shots. What is Canelo known for? Body shots. And Canelo has always done a good job at pacing himself. He can throw 40 punches around and win a round. So I think that's kind of what we're going to expect there. But for Canelo, I don't know. As intriguing as that fight is, I think there's so many more intriguing fights at 160 I'd rather see him in. But I'm not going to fault him, because he, going up 2 divisions is still a challenge. And he's still taking on a challenge. It's not like, we've seen him against some questionable opponents. It's not a Chavez Jr. kind of opponent. Kovalev can still box. But there are definitely other opponents we want to see him with. And I think John hit it on the head. Everything he does is calculated. Other guys, they don't calculate as much, maybe because they can't afford to, because they're not the biggest, money fighter in the division. But I think the other thing is they don't feel the need. Like Gvozdyk could have been calculated and not fight Beterbiev. He could have done that, but he didn't. And I think that's what I'm talking about. There's a difference with that. I don't think it doesn't mean you be reckless, but I mean, for me, it's simple as this: who's the best guy? I want to see them fight. And I think some fighters abide by that. Other fighters say so and so doesn't bring enough money. And I think when I get that response, I say, then your mentality, like John said, you're becoming a businessman. That's not your job. Your job is to fight. And I think you see the difference between mentalities between two guys. And I guess after you reach a certain pinnacle of the sport, that's how you become. But I think certain guys are not like that. Like again, Errol Spence could have fought someone else, and he decided to fight Sean Porter. And let's face it, Sean Porter's just going to make you look bad. Sean Porter's not. You can't look good against Sean Porter. It's almost impossible. And Spence is almost as good as you could. So again, it's just a shift. We just see a different mentality with certain guys. But there's a lot of intriguing fights for Canelo. So I'm not going to be disappointed as long as we see him in some of those intriguing fights rather than the non-intriguing ones.
John, Riz made some good points here. If Saunders hasn't fought anybody of any note in a very long time. Lemieux was in 2017, then it's been Adamu, Isufi, and now this guy Coceres. None of us have heard of any of these guys really. If you're Canelo, now's the time to fight the guy, right? Now's the time to fight Saunders. He's probably, way over your head. What a jump up to fight Canelo all of a sudden. And also, my second question is, if you're Canelo coming down from 175, would you rather fight Saunders at 168 or 160?
Well, the first question
in May.
I don't know. with Saunders, I don't know, because the Saunders we're going to see in a few weeks is probably not going to, well, no, not probably, will not be the Saunders we see against Canelo, because even with the inactivity, he knows this is the biggest fight of his career, and hope if he puts away his demons and his immaturity and his 3-year-old thinking and says to himself, look, this is it for me. I'm going to make my most money, and I could pull off what some people would consider an upset. I'm going to really get in the best shape I can to fight this guy, and his chances of winning are good. If he's the same guy that fought David Lemieux, like Riz was right there to see it, obviously Canelo has more skill and is faster than David Lemieux and all those kind of things, but that Billy Joe Saunders, that guy that was in there against David Lemieux, is so clever, so frustrating, all those things. And you're right, because he's still talking about beating Chris Eubank. And it's like, come on, Billy Joe. I mean, we need to get with we need to get with now. You forget Chris Eubank, and that's 3 years ago or 4 years. I don't know. I think
2014. I think it was, wasn't it?
Oh, is it
5?
Yeah, something like that.
I believe so. Yeah.
I thought it was 15. So whatever, it's in the past, and that tells you a lot. You shouldn't be talking about the past. You should be talking about the future. So I think that if he fights Canelo, he'll be in the best shape he can be, and unless he's a total moron, which I know I'm being very harsh on him today, but he is a total moron. But I think as far as a boxer and his thinking as a boxer, he's going to be in the best shape he can be in to fight Canelo. Now, as far as the weight goes, he went up to 168 too, and I think he said he felt very comfortable. If I'm Canelo, I think I want to stay at 160 because I want to be as quick as I can be to catch him. Now, Canelo fought Austin Trout, as we know, and fought Lara, and he did pretty well against those guys. Now, a number of people think he lost both those fights, and there's a big, especially the Lara fight. So if I'm him, I want every advantage I can get. And here we go again. He's calculating. He's not a moron. Canelo is not. He's going to look for every edge, and that's what you got to do. It's an individual sport, boxing. You got to take care of yourself. That's just smart. And you might even make Billy Joe work even harder to get down to 160. But then again, maybe he'll even be in better shape. But if I'm Canelo, I'm thinking 160 is the weight I look my best at. He could fight him at 168 too. I remember the one time we saw him was against Rocky Fielding, and all that was a showcase fight. We knew that. We knew that Rocky doesn't have a very good jaw. He's not a Rocky Balboa or Rocky Graziano. He can't take it to the chops, and he certainly couldn't take it to the body. So he folded in 3. Billy Joe's not going to do that. Billy Joe's going to be, now you see me, now you don't. So I think for Canelo, the advantage is at 160, but he could fight him at 168. But if it was me, I'd stay in the middleweight division because that's what I think his natural prime is. Canelo's not a very big guy. Remember, he's barely, I don't even think he's 5'9". He's 5'8.5" maybe, but he's in excellent condition, obviously. But that fight against Billy Joe is interesting to me because that's a risky fight as far as I'm concerned. But he fights him in Las Vegas. Here we go again with the calculation. He fights him in Las Vegas and he chases him. He'll probably get the decision just on the fact that he was the aggressor. He doesn't lose decisions. We know that. So he knows that. So Billy Joe's going to have to stand and fight him. And beat him to the punch, and that's going to be the tricky part. But that could turn into a really ugly fight, or it could be where Billy Joe does everything but get the decision. So that one's going to be fun to read about it, and as it gets closer to talk about it, because it obviously Canelo was always the favorite, but Billy Joe, as we know, and we keep saying over and over again, the man has some real skills. And he'd drive anybody nuts. If I'm Golovkin, I don't want to fight him, especially at 37 years old. You never catch him. If he did, he'd have to get him. And then he's a little slower firing now than he was. The trigger's a little slower. So he's a tough opponent style-wise. So that Canelo fights him. That'll be very interesting, Dennis.
Okay, you guys mentioned this a few minutes ago. This coming Saturday, at long last, is the World Boxing Super Series 140-pound finale between Regis Prograis, who's 24-0 with 20 knockouts, and Josh Taylor, who's 15-0 with 12 knockouts. WBA and IBF and Ring Magazine titles are all on the line. Riz, who do you like and why?
It's a close one. Prograis is the more seasoned pro at this point. I think Taylor's not yet in his prime. I think Taylor might be I think this is the fight, ironically, that probably pushes Taylor towards his prime. Where I think Prograis is already there. I don't think anyone gets knocked out. I think you're just going to see the close rounds be taken by Prograis, and I think that's what's going to give him the nod. But that's a close fight. And again, talking about mentality, these two guys have already had to work for so much, and they never really got that push that they wanted, and now they have it. And I just look at Prograis, and I just think he's kind of ready for. When he entered this thing, he said, "This is a chance for no one to avoid me. This is my chance to really shine." And he's had about 9 more fights than Taylor's had, and I think he's already fought some pretty high-level guys too. There hasn't been, and what's common actually, funny enough, with this fight and the Golovkin and Derevyanchenko and Porter and Spence and Beterbiev and Gvozdyk, I haven't heard one sentence of trash talk in any of those single fights. And I think that's refreshing, because I think these guys, there's a certain amount of respect there, but they understand that, they're there to do a job, and it's not going to be easy for either of these guys. I just see Prograis, what I've seen about Prograis that impresses me is his ability to turn on the power when he needs to. Josh Taylor, I think, has a natural boxing skill, but I think in some ways he doesn't have, I don't think he's going to be able to sit on his punches. I think just raw power, Prograis has more. And Prograis is a better athlete. So if Prograis is able to land more, it's going to be a problem. Now, something to consider, though, Prograis has to fight on the road. He's fighting in O2 Arena. We've seen fighters in England be completely different fighters. A Carl Froch in London or Carl Froch in England against Bute was still one of the most shocking performances I've ever seen. Because the guy that was avoided was, and the guy who was, and Froch was one of those guys who worked for everything. Froch was a different animal. Like, it was just completely different. So I think Prograis is going to be a little shocked by fighting on the road. He's never had to fight outside America. Now he's fighting in a super hostile crowd. Taylor's been in these crowds before. So that's the one real edge that Taylor has that Prograis just can't touch. I don't think it's going to be a shock for Taylor to be in a huge crowd like this. And if Prograis does have some nerves early and he loses a couple of those rounds, that could be huge towards when the scorecards are actually announced. Because you guys know, first round is just as important as the 12th round when it comes to scorecards. I don't know. The only guy I've seen who does that well on the road, outside of Lomachenko, was Errol Spence when he knocked out Cal Brook. But that's rare. Like, those guys are rare to do that on the road. So that's just a whole different, something completely different. And not to mention, obviously, hometown cooking. That does happen. Let's not act like it doesn't. But I just see that if Prograis can't lose the first 2 rounds, because if it's a close fight the rest of the way, I can't see him winning on the scorecards. So he's going to have to hurt. He's going to have to hurt Josh Taylor. If he's not able to hurt Josh Taylor, it's going to be difficult for him. I think he will hurt Josh Taylor, though. And if he doesn't score a knockdown, I think that will shift the fight in some ways, because Josh Taylor really hasn't been hurt yet, and he hasn't had to deal with that adversity yet. And again, I don't think he's fully in his prime yet. But we're in for a great fight. We're in for another outstanding fight between 2 undefeated guys, unification. Super 6 aside, this is one for all the marbles, and I think both guys are great.
John, what's your take? Rougarou or hometown stud?
Boy, this is a fun one. I just a few hours ago was writing an article, and the headline is "It's a pick'em fight," and it is. And what really is intriguing to me, I'm going to reveal the first paragraph, was that the odds, Dennis. The odds makers are usually pretty much on, and in the beginning, a few months ago, maybe a little longer, the Rougarou was the favorite, and now in the last few weeks, suddenly Taylor is the favorite. which tells you that they don't even know who to really go with in this one. But I'm like Riz. I think that Prograis is a better fighter. I do. Not that Josh Taylor isn't a good fighter, but Rougarou is a little better of a fighter, and he's got the experience. I think he's a little more versatile too. Josh Taylor is more a boxer. Rougarou, as we know, he's a power guy, but he also showed against Terry Flanagan that he can box when he needs to. And I think that versatility could end up being a key. But this fight, this is why it's a pick 'em fight, because the hometown thing, which of course you have to mention, that is going to be tough. It's the O2 Arena. Crowd's going to be going bonkers with everything Taylor does. Regis Prograis mentioned it, so it's on his mind. So I hope that Riz sends him a text and says, look, you got to start fast here, because if you lose the first 2 rounds or whatever, even the first round, it's going to be hard, because there's going to be a rhythm set, and the crowd's going to be going crazy, and you're going to have to find your way back, score a knockdown. I think it's a 12-rounder too. I think it's a split decision possibly, but I'm going with Regis Prograis as well. I think Josh Taylor's a little easier to hit, and that could end up being a key later in the fight. But I won't be surprised if we're through 9 rounds and the commentators, unless you're watching it on Sky Sports, where they tend to be very biased towards the English fighter, are saying, man, this is really close. It's like 4 rounds apiece, something like that. The last 3 rounds, these are championship rounds nowadays. Well, like through 9 rounds, it's pretty close. 10, 11, and 12 are going to end it, or going to decide it. So that's what I'm thinking. Yep. But I'm going to go Prograis as well. Split decision, possibly unanimous, but I just got a feeling in my gut that Prograis is going to win, and but it's going to be really a tough one.
Rizwaan, Zahid, and John J. Raspanti are our expert analysts, along with Travis Hartman. Riz and John, thanks for great insight as always. And Travis, safe travels from London, buddy. Hey, Riz took off. John, thank you very much, man.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. All right. And Donny Lalonde is in the on-deck circle. We'll be right back in just a minute. Don't touch that dial.
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Artur and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. You know, writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Artur and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
If you like the Ringside Boxing Show, you're going to love the website, ringsideboxingshow.com.
What are you doing?
Put 'em up. Put 'em up. Which one are you first? I'll fight you both together if you want. I'll fight you with one paw tied behind my back. I'll fight you standing on 1 foot. I'll fight you with my eyes closed.
Taken has stepped in and stopped it. That's it. A 5th-round knockout for the champion, Donny Lalonde. Stewart on his feet, but the referee, Marty Denkin, wisely stepping in as Stewart just was allowing Lalonde to fire away at him without any retaliatory punches.
Tim, he was just going on instinct. He was very badly hurt. I don't think he knew what he was doing.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and today's featured guest held the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship for about 13 months in 1987 and 1988. Donny Lalonde had a career record of 41-5 with 1 draw, knocked out 33 guys, and his career included fights with Mustafa Hamsho, Eddie Davis, Leslie Stewart, that's the clip you just heard, Sugar Ray Leonard, Bobby Ches, and Virgil Hill, among many others. Near the end of his career, he invested in real estate and turned a $2 million net worth into $6.4 million. Then he got tangled up in the complicated world of high finance, which is a story that Donny says has been badly misrepresented in previous media reports. We wanted to give him a chance to tell you that story today. Donny, welcome back to our show. Always great to talk to you. Last time we spoke, you were living the tropical life in exotic Costa Rica. How are you, and where are you living nowadays?
Well, actually, ironically, tomorrow I am heading, Saturday I am heading back to Costa Rica. So I have unfinished business there, as you sort of touched on, unrelated to the scandalous reports or the defamation efforts that were done of me, but I'm just going back there to live life for a while and finish up the real estate business I had started, because we have a bunch of unfinished things that need to be completed, houses unfinished, developments incomplete and stuff that I want to finish before sort of like deciding where to retire in life.
Okay. So what happened to you beginning around, I think, 2003 was an entanglement that became known as the Panama Papers scandal. And this is a really complex story that involves some big-time financial players around the world, including presidents and prime ministers. And I think much to your own surprise, you yourself, and you had to hire lawyers. Your investments tanked when the world economy went south. You lost your money. Your good name got muddied. So let me get out of your way for a few minutes and let you break down this story for our audience as best you can. Tell us what the Panama Papers scandal was and how you got tangled up in this mess and how it impacted your life for the past decade and a half, more than that, and also what the media got wrong. And I'll interrupt you every once in a while if we need to clarify something, but mostly I'm going to stay out of your way here for a few minutes.
Okay, sure. Well, as you touched on, the media is not infallible. It can be incorrect, and that's one wonderful thing about the world today is that there's alternative media, and so people like yourself and other alternative media outlets can have the opportunity to share news or stories of interest from the people that are directly involved, therefore making it a more sort of like seamless experience for the listeners or the readers, because when you have compromised institutions that own large media conglomerates that have an agenda, it's very difficult for the individual to have his words expressed how he's meaning them to be expressed. And if you look at and read between the lines of the stories that were done on my involvement with the law firm Mossack Fonseca in Panama, you could easily see that it was a very manipulated story with a lot of spaces that were void of information that would have filled in the blanks, which would have made a much more coherent interview. But as a matter of fact, with something kind of ironic, I don't know if you know this, but on Friday, Netflix, and I believe in some theaters, there's a movie supposed to come out called The Laundromat, and that's all about the Panama Papers.
Oh, okay.
Now,
all right.
Yeah, so now, people have more of a chance to see it and understand more about it. But, I mean, again, who did the movie and what was their intention and what were they trying to get across, So I haven't seen it. I don't know exactly what it's going to show. But, I mean, the bottom line is I can say this about it. I moved to Costa Rica after having, an unfortunate situation in Canada where I had done very well with my money, investing my money. I actually had a really honest, wonderful money manager, and I should never have taken my money and done anything with it because, like most athletes, I come from a lack of education. I have grade 9, I left home at 15. A lot of athletes, or a lot of people in music, professionals in the world, athletes and entertainers, it seems, more so than professionals, because those are usually well-educated people. A lot of people that accomplish things kind of sort of coming from nowhere lose the process of education along the way. And I'm no different than that. I left home at 15 years old. It was a very abusive home, and I therefore missed out on a lot of education. It was actually after grade 2 that I decided I had to leave home, but it took me till grade 9 to get out of the house. And so for people like myself, we don't have the same education, and we're the ones who end up making all this money. And, of course, it's not only that we don't know what to do with it. The old saying, a fool and his money soon shall part. Well, that's very true, by the way. So remember that. Anybody out there who comes across money that doesn't have an education. But the reality is the people around them as well. So when a person who comes from nothing and suddenly in people's eyes, because it never happens overnight. This is usually other than lottery winners who have about the same track record as professional athletes of keeping their money, which is not good. People that come from a background similar to myself, the people around them also come from that same background. And when somebody that they knew when they were young or know from their youth that becomes successful, all of a sudden it's kind of like everybody around you thinks they won the lottery. And unless you're a very, in my opinion only, cold-hearted person who doesn't want to kind of help those around you as you elevate or from your elevation, those that can just sort of ignore the people of their past or the family and their around them that don't have this background, they can just go on in life and kind of like maybe ignore those people and not have them in their life. I couldn't do that. So unfortunately, when I won that title and made that money, the first step I did, which is what most people do, almost out of guilt, is go back to their friends and family and try and help them. And you know the old saying, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's a saying, but it's a truth, that you're only as strong as you can be as an individual. Once you go, let's say, like, they say your net worth will end up being the average of the top 5 people around you. Well, if I had stayed in New York, living the high life, hanging out with Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, New York Ranger hockey players, tennis players. I mean, like the people that I had, my life had evolved to being by being this sports celebrity in New York. Of course, none of this stuff would have happened if I just left my money with my money manager, let him put it in whatever these things are called, annuity or whatever, and today I was still just living off that money. But instead, I felt guilty to just leave everybody, and I went back to Canada and tried to start a business that I thought I could enroll my family and friends in and help them make money as well. Well, the mistake I made, as my money manager said, was, Donny, you're an intelligent person. You have a nice background in real estate, because I owned 5 houses before I even moved to New York to box. And, I owned them by the time I was 23 years old. He said, but your education doesn't allow you to manage a wide portfolio, which is what you need to survive the ups and downs of the stock market or the real estate market, or, our financial system has cycles. And so I said, yeah, but Richie, I can make, at the time I was getting like 10, 11, 12% of my CDs at the bank. And he was telling me, this is, gold. This is, well, you just stay here. It's 100% safe, 100% protected. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, when I live by myself and leave all my friends and family to just wallow in the life that they live in, why not go back and try and help them? And he was trying to tell me that if I stayed strong, I could always help people. If I bring my money back there to them and encircle myself around people that have no background in economics, and I have no background in economics, chances are I will end up within 10 years. He used Trump as an example. He said, here's a guy who makes billions, but then loses them, makes billions, then loses them in real estate cycles. He said, I shudder to say that you will probably end up doing the same thing. Well, within 10 years of moving my money from him is when I went bankrupt in Canada. And I'm not going to blame anybody around me, but all I'm saying is I spread myself out so thin, and I didn't have the knowledge of how to properly position myself to get through downturns, that when the time came, I wasn't in a position to fight the management of the money that I had made. Like you said, I went from $2 million to 6.4. Well, that was good. I did very good in the up times. But as soon as the crisis time hit in the real estate market at that time, I wasn't knowledgeable enough about how to sort of like manage my way through it until things turned around. I actually came very close within a few months, but I missed out, and I got beat, and I lost everything. So when I went to Costa Rica, I was going to rebuild. I went there with $11,000, suburban, and my family. And that's what I started with in 2003. I fought Virgil Hill in 2003. I was supposed to get $100,000 for the fight. My partners / co-promoters of the fight, we promoted it, never paid me. Of course, I wasn't doing the economics of it. I was the fighter. So I did get screwed by those guys. I never got paid. Hill got paid. I never got paid for the fight. And I'm the one who put it together. But anyway, so I went down to Costa Rica with very little, a wife, 2 kids, and started again. And, you know, I just started back what I knew, which was in real estate. And what I would do is I said to my wife, I said, I need to go down there for a month, meditate, pray, and do yoga. And the solution will come to me of what I need to do to you know, take care of us. And I had this premonition one day in a meditation. It just said, make a big pizza pie, take your piece, and share the rest fairly. And that was my goal. So I went down there and I found like little areas that were obviously in the future going to be very desirable areas. But at that time, the market was very low. So the first lot I bought was for $4,000. I actually paid $1,000 and borrowed got the seller to let me pay the next $3,000 over the next 6 months, which I did by working and selling real estate and painting houses, doing whatever I could do. And I bought that lot, and I built a spec house on it. I got a mutual friend or a friend of a friend, so a mutual friend of a friend, to lend me money. We built a spec house on it. I made $40,000 in that house and just rebuilt. I rebuilt to having a very sizable amount of net worth again. Because, again, I got very lucky in an upturn in the real estate market in Costa Rica. And the transition from Costa Rica being fully third world to having many U.S. and international major corporations go down there and start doing business, you know, in telecommunications and certain industries that Costa Rica is strong in today. So anyway, I got lucky with the timing, and I did good business, so I made a lot of people a lot of money. So what I would do is I would say, let's say I'd go and find like a package of lots for $20,000 for 4 lots. And I would go to people I knew, and I'd say, you know, I bought this lot for $6,000. You give me $7,000, and you can have it. And then, you know, I would make, say, net 1 lot, and then build a spec house on it and sell it and make some more money. You know, so I slowly built myself back. And I didn't know, you know, in Costa Rica how to do business in the sense of what law firms, what corporate structures, etc. So I went to the people I knew, and I knew the family of the president of the country, because when you come from the high-profile name, all of a sudden doors open that most people don't get opened. And so I knew the, you know, family of the president of the country, and I knew many high-net-worth business people there. And I was told that the best structure is go to Panama, form a foundation, have that foundation form a company, have that company form a Costa Rican company, and do your business with that Costa Rican company. Because in Costa Rica, the way the tax law worked, that was your best advantage to do it. Asset protection and tax planning, that was the best structure. I was advised by a family member of the president of the country. And he said, look, this law firm represents Panama Canal, the Panama government, the Costa Rican government when they do business down there. This is the law firm. What do I know? So I went with them. So I had this law firm, set up my structure, and did a bunch of business. And I had a lot of friends from Canada, you know, when you're known and you've been successful and you're financially, you know, you've been known to make good money financially, people follow you. So people came to me and said, what are you doing down there? Can I get involved? Blah, blah, blah. So some friends of mine, again, from my past, I invited them to participate. And what they did in participating is broker deals. So they would bring people into some real estate deals. And in doing that, earn money. You know, and they started earning more money than they ever earned. So they moved down there and they started living a crazy life and getting into partying and cocaine and all that stuff, which I'm not into. I never was, never did. I mean, I tried it when I was a teenager and all that stuff, never liked it. So it wasn't part of my life, obviously. And so, you know, these people came down and brought all these investors. Well, everything went great as long as it was going well. But then when the world financial crisis hit and our projects ran out of funding, it's not me, it's the projects, it's the world economy, it's the banks, it's the, you know, investors that were putting up bonds and all that kind of stuff. That all changed when the world economy hit. So these people came to me and they started saying, we need more land. We need you to give us some of the land that we bought with these people. And I said, listen, we owe these people service-titled land, and we have to, it takes money to do that, and there's no money in the market right now, so we have to wait until the market comes back. Then the more money will come in, we'll finish our job for them, they'll get everything they have, we'll see what's left, and we'll deal with it then. Well, they wouldn't accept this. So they threatened me. They threatened me on many different levels. In one mail, they threatened my life, and my wife saw it inadvertently, and it really, really, really affected her health. And, you know, it was a very stressful and overbearing time because, you know, I mean, like I said, I have grade 9. I mean, I all of a sudden I had all these huge projects, and there was no money in the market, and all I could do is tell people, look, we just have to wait. And investors become impatient, and the brokers became impatient, and people started pressuring me. So I just said, look, if you look at the contract, it says, I will do my very best effort to fulfill these obligations, period. And that's what I have done. I have done my very best effort. With the pressure I'm getting from all you guys, I'm walking away because it's not worth my family's health. You guys can have it. And I walked away from those projects in 2012. So all that means is I owned my percentage, but I gave it up. I walked away from it. So I gave it to my partner, who still has it today. He's the one all these people that were talking and complaining to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists who did the stories of the Panama Paper needed to speak to. But he didn't have a name, so they used my name. I wasn't even involved with that project for 4 years when that story came out. If they did any due diligence, they would have known that. So it had nothing to do with me, that whole story. But I was the name. So these brokers threatened me in my life, but they also said, we're going to destroy your name, we're going to hurt you on social media, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I said, do whatever you want. I'm just not going to give you land that really rightfully belongs to the people until we fulfill our obligations with it. And if you keep this up, then I'm just going to walk away, which I did. So these people had a chip on their shoulders. That's part A of the story. Part B is the International Coalition or Consortium of Investigative Journalists stole 11.54 million documents of a law firm. That's called theft. You can't steal something like that and expose the whole world to it without having to justify what you did. Or people are not going to listen to your story. They're going to say, what you did was wrong. You stole all that information. So what they did is they had to create sensationalized stories. Like, the president of Malta was sending money to his Panama company for passports. The Prime Minister of Iceland did whatever he did. Putin did whatever he did. And Donny Lalonde scammed all these people, which they got the story from the son of one of the writers of the Panama Papers, who lived in Costa Rica and run into one of these loser ex-friends of mine that were walking around telling lies about me. So they got all this information from lies. The people that were interviewed by those things, I have documented evidence to prove everything I'm saying to you. The people that said those lies on TV about me, like the one guy, Al Brownstone, I give Don $80,000, I got nothing. That's a 100% lie. I have the contract. He invested $12,000, and he got a part of a large property, 150 acres, 165 acres. He got ownership of with these other group of investors who are also saying they got nothing. And I mean, it's all evident, it's all documented. They signed release agreements saying they received what they got from the company. And I tried to give this to the writers of the Panama Papers when they were interviewing me. I said, listen, you guys, well, I don't even know who you're talking to, but I can just tell you one thing. I have documents that show you that these people received what they said what they're saying they didn't receive, because I had sort of gotten wind of what their story was that they were talking about. And they said, we don't need to see documents, we just have a few questions. I said, the valid facts in writing with their signature is not relevant to you. You just have a few questions. And they say, yeah, don't worry. This is just, we're just trying to complete the story. We've been all over the world. We've been to Costa Rica. We've been all over the place. All we need is ask you a few questions. And I said, all right. And just because I had nothing to hide, I said, okay. And I just went along with the interview. It was the stupidest thing I ever did. I should have just said, show me what you're going to write. Show me who you're talking to. Tell me what they're saying, and let me show you evidence of the facts, and then let's talk. I should have insisted on that, but like an idiot, I didn't. So this story came out, which was very, very inaccurate. So these people that spoke about me, this one lady, I gave Donny X amount of money, whatever, and didn't get anything. 100% lie. She was paid back by my partner because it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the company they invested in, not me. I just happen to have a name. So they used my name. But they had a contract with the company. The company paid them back, paid her back, and cash. The other people who got land, and that's that. But meanwhile, the story writers of the Panama Papers didn't look at one bit of evidence, so they had nothing to go by but the story that they wanted to tell, which was, look at the bad people we have caught through the theft of these documents. So
Donny, what was the real-life impact? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, that's okay. Unfortunately, I got caught up in that, and unfortunately, look, I was involved in those projects, and people got involved with those projects because of my name. And for that, I take responsibility. I was managing for a couple years those projects. I have got documented proof of where every penny went and all that. So I never did anything wrong. I had accountants, bookkeepers, all that stuff. But I can acknowledge that these people had invested, using my, through my name, and some of them didn't get what they thought they should get, and they're upset. And I acknowledge that, and I'm sorry for that. I really am. But I did the best I could. I honestly did the best I could. And I told them at a point, I've got, again, these are all minutes of meetings of board of directors, where I said, look, guys, we need to hire people far beyond me because this has gotten beyond me. I have a grade 9. I have a good eye for real estate purchases. But I'm not, educated to do this whole project by myself. I need help. So if you guys want to do such a big thing like this, because they all wanted to do a golf course project and all these different things, I said, we need a board of directors, which we formed. And I stepped aside, and they all ran it from there. Again, all documented by minutes of meetings, with the board of directors. So anyway, bottom line is, because of my name, people got involved with something. Because of my name, people got involved with something that didn't fulfill itself completely. And I'm sorry for those people, and I honestly am. And nobody was hurt in the deals more than I was. that you just mentioned. What was my life impact? Well, first of all, I'm the number one investor in all the projects, and so I lost more than anybody. Not that we've even lost, because we either own the land that we were given by the company, or the company still owns the land, and they should still get it from them, though I have nothing to do with that. I have been involved in the company now for 7 years. So whoever runs it, I petition to them all the time to try and find out what's going on and when do I get my land and that kind of stuff, because I have some, but some I didn't get yet. And I'm sure the same as with some of the other people I didn't get. About, 70, 80% of people were made whole, but some people weren't, and I'm one of them. So, I do apologize very sincerely for any involvement I had, but just for people to know, I was hurt more than anybody, financially. Forget about the other ways. Like you said, reputation-wise. None of them had a reputation. I had a stellar reputation. And it was destroyed by this, and it's completely inaccurate. But people will never know that because they read that one big sensationalized story, and that's what they think is truth. So,
what was it like for you? What was it like for you, Donny, reading your name attached to all this? What was the real life impact of that?
It was surreal.
And your family.
It was surreal. Yeah, it was surreal for me. It was horrible for my family, for my wife's family. My wife's father is like a multiple-time world bullfighter champion. He's got a stellar reputation in his community, all over his world. He's he was on Hee Haw. He was a musician. Elvis invited him on the road because he was a studio musician in Stax or whatever, one of these Sun Studio in Memphis here. Mm-hmm. It's a very credible family. And they, they were, my name getting dragged through all of that, of course, affects them, affects my family. We were all proud of what I had done in my life. I felt good about myself for how I handled myself in boxing and in the public eye, and what I did for the kids and what I did with what I earned from boxing. I went and tried to help my family and my friends, so I felt good about myself for all this. And they just robbed me of all of that, So it was devastating.
Did your marriage survive this?
It did, miraculously, but that says more about the character my wife has than anything else, because she knows. She was there. And she, in fact, was at a meeting, at one of these board of director meetings, and because she had taken all the courses of real estate in Costa Rica, because we had a real estate company, like where you sell real estate, represent people. And it's called VIP Realty. The guy who basically developed the whole town we lived in, Tamarindo, Russell Weinreich, he financed a real estate company called VIP Realty, and myself and another friend ran it for him. And so, we were very high profile. And my wife is the only one who took the courses that educated you on Costa Rican law of real estate. And when these guys got involved with this project, like I said, they wanted to change from what we had agreed on for me to deliver, for the company to deliver to them, to them being involved, everybody shareholders, in a big golf course community. When they wanted to do that transition, stupidly, I went along with it, just trying to help everybody. But my wife said in one meeting, Donny, and you guys listen to me. What you want to do in changing this project takes it from, like a $7 million project to a $50 million project, from a 3-year project to a 10-year project, from minimal regulations to enormous regulations. There's no way in hell Donny's going to do this and put his self on the line to do all this work for you guys, and end up with the same thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would he do that? And one of the guys looked at me and he goes, Donny, can you get your wife out of our meeting? She's interfering with our ability to move forward in this project. And it was at that point I should have walked out of the room with her and said, you guys take this. But stupidly, I didn't. I just stood by that. I just said, Christy, please let us just finish our conversation, blah, 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 and went on. So my wife actually knew more about all this than I did or anybody else did as far as what we were taking on and the challenges we would have in the future. Of course, nobody could foresee the financial, thing that happened with, what was it? I was going to say Shearson Lehman, but I think it was another company. Anyway, the big company that went down that caused the financial crisis. I mean, who could predict that? But anyway, the bottom line is it was very, very damaging to our family and everything because, they saw me work even for a couple of years after the crisis, borrowing money I still owe today on properties of my own, having nothing to do with those other projects, the ones I'm talking about with the problems. I borrowed money I still owe today and been paying interest on today for 8 years and lent it to the company. And meanwhile, I'm the one who stole from the company? No, I'm the one who gave to the company over and over and over. And finally, I walked away from it and turned it over to the person who really, through him, is where all these other guys came. So I just said, hey, it's you guys, take it, and walked away, and they have it today. So anyway, that's more or less what happened in that whole scenario. And today, where does it sit? I own what I own. I had from the time in my problems in Canada, they referred to in the newspaper as 2003. My problem started in 1998. I was audited by Canadian government for taxation to do with the downturn in real estate there. They said I owed some money. I improperly wrote off some losses. I'm not an accountant. I would sit with my accountant every year, and he'd say, you want to do this, you want to do that? I said, listen, I don't know. Do whatever is right. I said, but when I was born and when I grew up, I had no money. Right now, I've got lots of money. So whatever the lines are, stay way inside of them. That's all I'm asking you to do. And they would advise me certain things. I would say, okay, whatever, sign the documents and leave it. And they would file my taxes. So if they made a mistake and we owed the Canadian government money, I knew nothing about it. And I just, when the Canadian government, they didn't come to me and say, we need to talk to you about this. They froze my money and froze all my assets and then said, you owe us money. I said, well, how am I supposed to pay you? You've got everything frozen. And they said, well, we have to work this out. You have to agree to pay this. I said, I'm not allowed to even look at it and dispute it. And they said, sure, this is what we're claiming. I said, well, that's 100% not accurate. And they said, well, you can appeal it. That's your only option. So that takes a year. It took me now $80,000 to borrow from friends, sell my cars, fight them. I won on the point they had claimed I did wrong. I won the case. And then they claimed another thing. And I didn't have any way, no more cars left, no more friends I could borrow money from, to fight them again. So after 5 years of fighting them under bankruptcy, from 1998 to 2003, finally I went bankrupt. But it was like I fought like hell to not go bankrupt because, I just didn't, I felt like it's not right. I mean, just give me the time to work this through. Kind of like, when you go bankrupt in America, you can do Chapter 11 or whatever, and you work through it. Mm-hmm. Well, if I was given that, kind of like leeway, it would have been a slam dunk, easy to get through it. Like I said, within 3 months, the market turned back around in Canada. Things that I sold to try and, salvage getting through all that stuff for $1 million then are worth like $6-7 million now. All I had to do was get through for a little longer. But anyway, bottom line is I had the problem in Canada. 100% take the responsibility for that because in the end, I'm the one who took money from my money manager when I had no business managing money at that level and got people involved that had no experience in managing money, and I got hurt by it. So I spread myself out too thin. I made mistakes like people do, and I lost everything. So I went down to Costa Rica, rebuilt everything, and then this Panama Papers thing comes out. And when Panama Papers came out, Mossack Fonseca, the law firm, is like the fall guy. They're the bad guys. If you look at the world and look at that movie, they're going to be pointed as the bad guys. Not the people that stole all the records from them and falsified stories like they did about me. I can't speak to all the other stories, but certainly about myself, I know 100% for sure. There was 99.9% inaccurate. So, but meanwhile, Mossack Fonseca is the bad guy. So anyway, that law firm, when the stories came out, any clients of theirs were no longer allowed from the banks to do banking. So all of my funds again were frozen. And there was a process to get them freed up. It took me 3 years, just like a year ago, not even 6 months ago, when I got my money back from the banks. So, again, I went through an incredibly stressful time. I'm in Malta with like $3,000 in my bank. And I'm being told, there's a story that comes out that says, I paid the Malta government $500,000 for me and my wife to have passports. It was so ludicrous, it was unbelievable. Like, A, I don't have a Maltese passport, never have had, so first check the facts. B, I don't have $500,000 because all my money's frozen. And at that time, because I had, like I said, spent all my money trying to keep the projects going, then borrowed money to try and keep the projects going, I had depleted any savings I had. And so, no, I was not in good shape. I eventually sold a couple of things I had in Costa Rica, and that's how I've survived till now. But, I mean, like, what we went through in 2006 was insane. Most people, like a lot of people, and believe me, don't think I didn't think about it, would find a way to end the misery.
Yeah.
I used to run in the morning. I'd be running in pouring rain. I always run facing traffic. Run at like 5 in the morning. It's still dark. You don't know how many times I just thought, one step to the right, the semi-trailer takes me out. This is all over.
Yep. I was going to ask
you
how you endured the mental and emotional pressure you went through. What got you through this? What do you think it was?
Knowing that I was innocent, I did the right thing. Like the judge in my life is God. I'm not a huge religious person or anything. I seldom go to church. I went the other day. I seldom go to church, but I mean, I'm not a big Catholic or any of that kind of stuff. But I know there's some power way the hell bigger than me and bigger than us as individuals, and I believe in God. And so, to me, I'm going to walk through the pearly gates one day, and I'm either going to get a high five or a thumbs down. And in my life, I know I'm going to get a high five because I've always lived an honorable life. So that's what kept my sanity, just knowing my relationship with God is clean because I have a clean conscience. Because I know what actions I've actually done and what I haven't done. I'm not perfect. I've done stupid things, but I'm nothing like what these people are talking about, So, what gets you through this kind of thing, or at least what got me through it, is knowing who I am. Like Christy says, just remember who you are, remember what you've done in your life, remember who you've been in your life. Well, I'm an honorable person to my family, I'm an honorable person to, overly loyal to friends that didn't deserve it at all, as it turns out, And anyway, so how do you get through something like that? I guess if I was Jeffrey Epstein, I wouldn't have needed somebody else to kill me and pretend it was him. Mm-hmm. I would have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how do you live with yourself if you do these kind of things? I know I couldn't. But how do you live with yourself under these kind of circumstances? Well, the truth, right? And ultimately, like you're giving me an opportunity to speak about it, the truth will come out. The truth ultimately rises to the top. Lies die fast. Truth stays forever. So in the end, this stuff's all going to be proven, shown, one way or another. I'm writing a book. I'm writing 3 books. My own personal life story. Not the Panama Papers. It's going to be called the Costa Rica Papers. I'm going to tell the story of the whole journey in Costa Rica, not just about this BS, about my whole journey in Costa Rica, landing there in a Suburban with a wife, 2 kids, a dog, and $11,000 in cash, and going back up to millions and how it all happened, and then the people that brought me down. And the whole thing will be shown, And then a third one, which I want to be, the later years of my life and how it all, like what you're asking about, how it affected your life and what happened later in life and how life finished, So that's my goal. Obviously, I can't speak to, I'm going to write, 50 books. But I'm just saying the first one's essentially finished. And my goal is to make sure that the truth comes out.
Did you feel like you were facing the possibility of jail at any point? You said people threatened you. Was that part of their threats?
Well, I mean, you know, the inference. I mean, there's. So what happened was like I said, some of the investors were conned by their broker friends who brought them into this to thinking that I did something wrong. So these guys all got together and said they're going to do a lawsuit against me, a number of years ago. Nothing's ever happened. As soon as I heard, I contacted their lawyer myself directly, and I said, listen, just so you know, I understand a group of guys are telling you a bunch of lies about me. If you want any question about what they're saying, or if you want any evidence of what I actually did, I have all the records, and I'm willing to come there, sit with you, and show everything so we can cut to the chase and not bother with this, not waste your time with this case, I said. And he said, Donny, I wasn't hired to find out the truth. I was hired to create a settlement. I said, oh, so the facts of what actually happened doesn't matter to you? He said, no, I've been hired by people to get a settlement. I said, that's called extortion. And he goes, well, you call it whatever you want, but my job is to get you to settle. And I said, well, I'm settled. Whenever you want to know the truth, let me know. And left it at that. So did I ever worry about, that? I mean, of course, courts, judges, lawyers, they can all be corrupted, anywhere in the world. So sure, once in a while I thought, geez, could somebody actually, present a case to a judge and establish me as have done something wrong? I guess that could happen. So the thought crossed my mind, of course, but nowhere near. That's not my concern. Is not, never has been that. My concern is that the investors get what they deserve to get, which is whatever the company can produce and provide for them after all this time, all these years, all the money, to carry all this stuff and keep it going. Hopefully everybody's made whole, and hopefully one day my name can be cleared. I mean, what more can I ask for?
Are you feeling like you're seeing the light? Go ahead.
I said the one thing that I have gained from it is you sure find out who your friends are, and you sure find out who your friends are not in the world. And that is a very valuable lesson. The most valuable.
Are you seeing?
Donny,
are you seeing a light at the end of the tunnel now? I mean, do you feel like most of this is behind you?
I mean, I feel it's not behind me because, again, that's why I'm going back down to Costa Rica. I have assets that I have to do something with that I've had for many years, and I have to go down there and do business. My name has been sullied, so I go to do business. People look at me like I'm this bad guy. My life since that story came out has changed 100%. You go from somebody people love, embrace, and trust unconditionally to someone that they question the minute they see you. So that's a very different world to try and do business in. Very challenging. So is it behind me? Yeah, in ways it's way behind me. But in other ways, my life has been affected economically and professionally enormously. And can I break through all that and get to the other side of it? I guess by just doing good business and carrying on, I guess ultimately people will see who you are and see, in spite of what happened, maybe he's changed or maybe that didn't really happen, but I don't know, he seems like an honorable guy and he's doing good business. Like 2012, I started a project called Beach Walk in Costa Rica in our little town called Avianes. And before that, I had done one called the Spirit of Bali. And if you were to go to that town, the nicest houses in town are either the Bali houses that my wife designed and I built, or Beach Walk, which my wife helped the engineer, architect design, and we had built. So, our projects are the nicest projects there. And it's unquestionable. So, I guess if you just continue, having integrity and working hard and producing good quality, ultimately people have to see the truth,
Last one for you. It sounds like Christy has been just a complete rock for you over the years.
Yes.
You've gotten a lot of strength from her. You can tell.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well,
hey, man.
you learn from the lessons in life and become better, right? Learn who to associate with, who not to associate with. Learn how to carry yourself and how to protect yourself and how to, try to make fewer mistakes. And I took too much on, and I took on stuff that I wasn't educated to complete under all conditions. And so I have to learn from that and just, eat some humble pie and learn to just take on what I can handle and, focus on the important things, which is the beautiful family I have around me, the friends that have stood by me, and the opportunities we have in our hand. And that's where we're going from here.
Well, I'm really glad we gave you the opportunity to tell this story today. I think it's going to be important for a lot of people to hear. And, man, thanks a bunch for doing it. And best of luck to you. I can't wait to read your books.
Thank you. I appreciate so much the time that you've given me today. Thank you.
Hey, man, you're very welcome, and we'll do it again. All right? So,
awesome.
Donny Lalonde, former WBC light heavyweight champion of the world, still standing after very rough patches in his life. Donny, you're as tough on the outside of the ring as you were in it. Always a pleasure talking to you. You're always a stand-up guy. Best of luck in the future. And, man, thanks for sharing your story today on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right. Our honor. Okay, Donny Lalonde on the Ringside Boxing Show. Yep. What?
I just wanted to say, should we talk about the fight coming up tomorrow night? For 1 second. I mean,
yeah, go for it, man.
That's my old belt, with Teddy Atlas representing the fighter who's carrying my old belt, ironically.
Yeah.
And one of my good friends, John Scully, in the corner of the other guy. One kid, Scully's guys, I can't say either one of their names, Beterbiev and the other kid.
Gvozdyk, yeah.
Scully's kid, Beterbiev, Scully's guy, 14-0, 14 knockouts, WBA champion. The other guy, 17-0, 14 knockouts. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that in boxing. So
no, it doesn't. And you know what? I saw something else about you, I think, last week. Somebody was talking to Evander Holyfield, and it sounded like he was kind of jonesing to get back into it. And I think you kind of joked, that you think about that every day. Something like that.
Yeah, that is not a joke. That is the truth. But, I mean, as you've mentioned my wife a couple of times, I think a friend of mine said on that Facebook thing also, they said, Donny, I know that fight that you'll never make a comeback, because if you ever took it seriously and you ever really tried to do it, Christy would be the first opponent you would have to fight, and that would only last 23 seconds. So, yeah.
Good for her.
But who are you picking tomorrow night?
That's a toss-up fight. I'm leaning toward Gvozdyk.
Really?
Yeah, but I think that's a 50-50 fight. Yeah, it's a tremendous fight. Both of them are really good, and that division's excellent. I think boxing's going through. I think boxing's going through, a bit of a renaissance era right now. People are interested in the heavyweights again for the first time in quite a while. That welterweight division is rock solid. Some of the lighter weights are spectacular. I'm really into it right now. And how about Errol Spence, man? Flips his Ferrari 5 times and comes out without a single broken bone last week. Talk about
unbelievable, isn't it?
Yep.
Unbelievable.
It's not even going to affect his career, they don't think. So.
Yeah, and we have to just mention, Patrick.
Patrick Day.
So Patrick Day, who just passed the other day. God bless him. Rest in peace. But it's. I think the sport is one of the reasons why it's, and on an upswing, as you're referring to, suggesting, is now we have mainstream media showing it. Mainstream television.
Yeah.
ESPN showing these kind of fights. Dazen's doing a great job of exposing boxing. So I think, the exposure that we're getting internationally is really relevant as to why it's making a comeback. But boxing is like that. Knock it down, it's going to come back every time.
Yeah, and you can find anything you want on these internet sites too. There's just an awful lot of information out there on any fighter that you want. So it's really exciting for me. Yep.
Facebook shows fights for free, streaming or whatever. So it's great. I'm really happy for the kids in the sport today, and I'm really happy for the sport. I don't like the watering down of these titles. Everybody's got a world championship these days. And
an international, intercontinental title, and there's 800 titles for each sanctioning body, which is a little bit frustrating. But I guess it raises people's self-esteem.
Exactly.
Make some money too. Yeah. So. Yeah. All right, my friend. Hey, next time we have you on, let's talk some boxing. Let's have some fun. All right.
There's lots of that to be done. Anytime you want. Take care.
Okay. All right. Donny Lalonde on the Ringside Boxing Show. Thank you, Donny. All right. Hey, do you like this podcast? Do us a solid and tell your boxing brethren about the Ringside Boxing Show. Help us grow. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the #1 website in the world for daily boxing news, you got something to do right now. We update ringsideboxingshow.com 365 days a year with the biggest headlines and most interesting stories every single day. Check it out right now, and you will be amazed, guaranteed. ringsideboxingshow.com. We want to thank our expert analysts Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti for their weekly contributions to this show, along with our outstanding British correspondent Paul McLaughlin. And another huge thanks to today's featured guest, former world light heavyweight champion of the world, Donny Lalonde. And, of course, we thank you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked. We'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. This is great.